Well, welcome to the Side Action, episode 23 of season 5. My name is Jim Weglars, aka Wegs. You can follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and on Instagram.
And I'm Steve Roberts, aka Action. You can follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
Follow the podcast at Side Action Pod on Twitter and Side Action Podcast on Instagram. So it was a weird Sunday without football action. I didn't know what to do with myself last week. I watched a little college basketball. I guess I got out. Oh yeah, I had a family party. Yeah, I got to catch up with the family. I haven't seen them in 17,
Nice.
18, 19 weeks.
For sure. Nice.
I also saw Milos. I think I might have mentioned. I went to see the new Milos. I won't call it a lair. It's actually a home now. He lives out in the suburbs, and
Wow.
he's used to listen to the pod. Now he's got that little boy who's 2.5, and he's living in LaGrange. Very nice little community. And so I saw him in the morning, and then I went to the family party in the afternoon. It was quite a Sunday.
Wow. Milos is all domesticated now. Quite a sight to see.
Super domesticated. I mean, like, it was kind of weird. I mean, first of all, I had to show up there at like 9 in the morning, which was like, that's weird. But secondly, we couldn't get there because the kid goes to sleep from 1 to 3, nap time. Can't go there from 1 to 3. Tried to organize it for Saturday. Didn't work because the 1 to 3 nap time. So I was out in the suburbs twice last week. I put on some miles last week, actually.
Well, that's good. At least the gas prices aren't too crazy right now.
Yeah, thank God for the hybrid. What about yourself? What did you have in the dock?
We were just kind of laying low last weekend. I think we were out and about running some errands, checking out REI, got to get our climbing gear trip in, and certainly watching some college hoops as well. The Indiana-Purdue game was awesome.
I did see that.
And, Purdue, they bounced back this week, so that's good.
Yeah, that was awesome. I actually didn't put the recap. I'm sorry about that game, but that was one of the best games of the weekend. I ended up staying. That was Saturday. We communicated. I stayed to the end because I was having dinner with Ulrich, and I'm like, waiting to the end. It was such a good game. Came down the wire. I mean, Purdue came all the way back. I mean, it was close. They got within, 2 or 3 or something in that game, and then couldn't quite. But Indiana, finally got it done. And also, happy birthday to our co-host here.
Actually, thank you.
Yesterday was Melissa's also birthday, Wednesday, I believe. It's been a big birthday in the household there.
Yeah, big birthday week for sure.
Yeah.
So it's been a good time.
That's awesome. So, all right, Action. We came this far. It's Super Bowl weekend. I mean, everybody wants to hear about our picks. It's so funny because almost every week, we're reviewing all these games. Now you just have one game. You had 2 weeks to analyze it, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but there's not a lot of movement after the initial line move. It's pretty much been solid. So Chiefs Eagles here on Sunday. I guess it's 6:30 Eastern when the kickoff is for you. Eagles still sitting as a 1.5-point favorite. The total's ticked up to 51 now. I put the money line Eagles around that minus 121-ish.
Yeah.
Kansas City plus 100. So we've got the injuries, not a lot to report really. Mahomes isn't even on the injury report anymore. He's supposedly 100%. Juju's not on the injury report, so I guess he's fine. McCole Hardman was put on IR, so he's not going to play. I didn't see Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver, on there either. And Willie Gay was listed questionable on Monday, but he obviously had practiced or something. L'Jarius Sneed did have a limited practice, although he's been cleared from concussion protocol for the Chiefs. Eagles had a few more limited practices today for people, but nobody was listed early in the week. It's just looks like the guys were already on there before, Marlon Tuipolotulu, and Brett Toth. So, do any of these injuries, you glean any information from these injuries?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest one that jumps out is McCole Hardman. I mean, I think he's the one known situation in this game. He's going to be out for sure. So I don't really think that moves the needle much. I mean, especially after Tyreek Hill left in the offseason, these wide receiver components outside of Kelsey are pretty interchangeable. So, I mean, Juju had the big game. I'm sorry, it was MVS that had the big game in the championship. So, I mean, now they'll have Juju back. Toney presumably is going to be healthy. And Kelsey, of course, will be out there too. And I think we might actually see Clyde Edwards-Helaire get some run out too. He's supposed to be back.
Yeah, he got he came up. I guess he's released from IR, so he's ready to go theoretically. That could be an extra element, maybe cut into some touches for Pacheco, who I do like in this game.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask where you watching the game?
We're just gonna hang at home, make some dips and appetizers. Just the two of us, probably watch here. I want to be closely connected to my PC here so that I can get some live wagers in, probably second half wager as well.
There you go. I like it. So I just kind
How
of
about
wrote
you?
some. Well, I'm going to go to Four Shadows. It's the
Okay,
second
right.
year in a row I've gone. I used to go to my buddy Omar's place, and I don't know, maybe he's had a party, maybe he's not. We haven't been as close. But last year I went to Four Shadows. I really liked it. They kind of have it. I don't know if it's going to be quite the same, but so the kitchen's open, but there's also a potluck. So people bring a ton
Nice.
of food. They do squares, everybody's getting rowdy. They have some giveaways. It's going to be fun. I got a table of 8. Shh, I have 10 already coming. I don't know. People are like, Wegs, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I have a table. I already locked it in for 8, but come on by.
Hmm.
I think Ulrich's going to come by, only stay the first half, so maybe I'll just have a little switch out.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, it's not going to be like other years where it's like maybe, I was at a party with like 30 people. Now it's going to be a bar full of like 70. Yeah, I like it. So.
Sounds awesome.
Um, yeah, and I guess we'll go into the bets in a minute, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the game. It should be a good game. I hope it's a good game. I hope it's not like a one-sided affair. So we'll see. It could be. So I was writing here about the handicap, and it's kind of like, okay, you got strength on strength, right? Chiefs number one passing offense, Eagles number one passing defense, right?
Yeah.
And then the Eagles strength, they're like 5th in rushing in the league, and then the Chiefs are really 8th against rushing in the league. So both teams, what they like to do, are going to face, a tough opponent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, historically speaking, we've always looked at this Chiefs defense as kind of weak on that side of the ball, but this year, out of the last several, I think it's been their best defensive team, buoyed by Chris Jones, the defensive tackle, having an elite season. And I think he's really the stout run stopper in there in the middle.
Yeah, he is. He's a really good player. And they have, Willie Gay being back on. I mean, he got hurt last week or 2 weeks ago. Him playing his keys really fast, really can stop the run, and then obviously helps in the passing game. I just thought maybe if you look at the weaker end of the side, so like the KC's only, they're only 20th in rushing in terms of offense against the 17th rushing D for Philly, which we've kind of talked before. That's kind of their Achilles heel. That Philly's defense is really good. Defensive line's great, but they essentially play nickel all the time. So they dare you to run the football. And I mentioned that on our last week's podcast. Do you think that Andy Reid will actually do it?
No. I mean, I think that he's probably going to scheme up some short passing attack, which is like effectively a stretched run game. Like
Right.
you mentioned Pacheco at the top. I think he's probably in line for some receptions. And of course, they always have Jerick McKinnon in there in known passing situations. So he could see him getting some catches out of the backfield as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other side, Philly's pass offense is actually 9th. It's not bad against Kansas City's 18th ranked pass defense. This is, I think, where the rubber meets the road. Is Jalen Hurts actually healthy enough to throw the rock? I mean, he's got 2 great receivers. I mean, Smith is awesome. A.J. Brown, huge offseason acquisition, has paid dividends. And Goddard's not a bad guy. They've got the guys out of the backfield. I think that this is, if Hurts can throw a ball, that's why I really like Philly. If he can't, then I guess we're going to see, maybe Kansas City takes over.
Yeah, I think to me, that is the biggest question mark in this game. Really, what is the true health of Jalen Hurts with that shoulder injury? Because, I mean, you've seen a completely different attack since he's returned from that injury. They're
Right.
not really throwing the ball like they were early on in the season. And I think if you took a snapshot of their last 4 games when Hurts returned, you would see that in the numbers. His passing yards are way down, and really their attempts are down as well.
Yeah, and what I've heard anyway, and what the Niners did, or maybe they tried to do initially before it got out of hand, you take away the middle of the field from Hurts, right? They like the A.J. Brown cross or the Goddard crossers. Then you make him throw outside the numbers, especially with the hurt shoulder. If you can do it, great. If you can't, you're going to be in this game. So we'll see if that changes. One of the things that I've heard, I've been listening to a lot of stuff this week, had a little more time outside of work, I guess. But as much as we talk about Jalen Hurts as a running quarterback, he's a great running quarterback. He had 13 rushing touchdowns, which I wrote in my article, was tied for second in the league with a couple other really good running backs. He does not scramble as a result of getting flushed out of the pocket. It's all design runs that he's a good runner on. So you're not going to, as much as you might think, well, he's just going to get flushed out and run and create plays. He's not really like Mahomes when he gets out of the pocket who's going to create a play. He's really design run, or he doesn't really complete the ball, I guess is what I understand.
Yeah. And further, I would take it one more step. He doesn't throw it away either, like our man Mahomes. I mean, I'm looking at his stats here: 32 sacks on the season for Jalen Hurts. So I mean, more to your point, not only does he not look to scramble, but he also takes some bone-crushing sacks as well.
Right. So we'll see how that plays out. It does. I mean, I'm assuming Mahomes is healthy out there because he's healthy. I think he's going to be healthy. The Philly offensive line has a couple of guys that are listed on the injury report or have been off and on for the last couple, last end of the season. I think everybody's going to be healthy. So, tell me what you're thinking. I mean, I think you're a Chiefs guy from what I understand.
Yeah. I'm just I'm not believing that Jalen Hurts is completely healthy, and I think that angle of the handicap that we just talked about is the reason that I'm backing the Chiefs as an underdog. +1.5. I got some +1. I've got a few money line tickets in my pocket from like mid game against the Bengals. It was more of a hedge at the time, but feeling good about the position. And I think that ultimately it's the Chiefs passing attack, and I like Patrick Mahomes to have a big game on the other side of the ball. So, I mean, for me, just seeing the Chiefs as an underdog is a buy for me.
Right. Here's what I'll say. I've written the article. I think Philly's going to win. It's game script dependent, very game script dependent. I think if the Chiefs are able to put up points early on the Eagles' offense or defense and make the Eagles chase, they got a really good chance to win this game outright, right? What the Eagles have done is they get a lead and they just salt it away in the second half. Can they do that against the Chiefs? Probably not, but they tend to eat up the clock, right?
Yeah.
And they do it in the first half and in the second half. It's just they don't tend to score as much in the second half because they're less aggressive. So those first couple drives are really going to be key for Philly to me scoring. If they don't get points on the board in the first quarter or the beginning of the second quarter, they're probably in trouble. And that's where I'll look at the live betting situation. As I mentioned before, I got the +550 on the Eagles, so I did not really bet on them. I did do the Chiefs teaser, the one I highlighted here, +7.5. And then I went under the 57. I know a lot of people, it looks like everybody's pounding the over here, even up to 51. It could go higher, but I still feel like at some point, I don't know, if the Chiefs win big, I just feel like the Eagles will just flop on their face. I don't know if it's going to be one of these back and forth affairs, but I've been wrong before.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly stands to reason that if the Chiefs take a lead early in this game, I think the Eagles are going to have a really hard time getting back into it because they're not situated to just drop back and pass it. We touched on the Hurts sacks that he takes, and the Kansas City defensive line gets after the quarterback in their own right, even though, I mean, they're of course not the Eagles in terms of sack numbers this season, but I have a feeling you're right on that. If the Chiefs get out to a big lead, then I think that total's in trouble.
Yeah. So, but either way, I still like under 51. It's interesting. I was looking at the betting splits, and this may only be, I went to Circus site. It may not be global, but what's interesting about this game, and I wrote about it in the article, I'm a little bit nervous about the Eagles because it's like 72% of the money, or 72% of the bets, and like 67% of the money is on the Eagles, which I like to be on the side of the books, to be honest with you. Action. And with the total, it's a little bit closer, but it's more like 55% on the over, 45%. So I definitely like to be on the side of the books. That's why I'm definitely hedging my position, and we'll do so in game. But it's a little bit surprising. I do think the line, it's obviously open for the Chiefs as the favorite and rolled really quick to the Eagles. I'm wondering if the Chiefs well, the Eagles will get bet up a little bit and maybe some buyback on the Chiefs later because it just seems like the money should get split out. These teams are, as much as I think the Eagles are better up front on both sides of the ball, it's Mahomes, right? So there's got to be some Mahomes love out there. Plus, he won the MVP last night.
Oh, really? I missed that. Wow.
Yeah, so they had the NFL honors on Thursday instead of Saturday. I'm not sure why they switched it. This was another angle I just wanted to talk about. I didn't put on the outline, sorry, action. But Mahomes, the last time an MVP has won the MVP for the season and the Super Bowl was, wait for it, Kurt Warner, 1999. Wow. It's been a long time. The other thing that happened was Jalen Hurts, who was up for Offensive Player of the Year and was up for the MVP, did not win either. Jefferson won the Offensive MVP, which I thought he had a great year, but I don't know. I think Hurts kind of got screwed, maybe because he got hurt for 2 games.
Yeah.
Is there any extra motivation? You think I mean, because there's a lot of people, I don't know if you've also seen the tweets. Everybody in San Francisco is like, oh, I would bet all my money on the Chiefs and the Jalen Hurts, if you make him be a quarterback, that they're going to win easily. There's been there's a lot of bulletin board material for Jalen Hurts in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, but it is the Super Bowl. I mean, it's hard. How much higher can you get? Yeah. It's the biggest game of his career to date. Playing in the Super Bowl, I don't know that he's going to get any sort of added motivation from being snubbed on the season awards, to be honest.
Yeah, just since you missed it, FYI, Nick Bosa won the Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay.
And then the Rookie of the Year was offensive rookie was Garrett Wilson.
Okay.
And then defensive was Sauce Gardner. So the Jets were awesome.
Wow, sweep.
Coach of the Year was Daboll. Coach of the Year was Daboll. So anyway, Walter Payton Man of the Year was Dak Prescott. I know you bet on that one. So, okay, so let's go over how we talked a little bit about it looks like you're more of an in-game guy for the Super Bowl versus you got some tickets, obviously pre-flop with KC, but you're definitely going to bet in-game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of in-game angles that I've lined up already. I like the Chiefs in the second half. Mm-hmm. I think regardless of script, whether they're leading at halftime or losing, I'm likely going to be betting the Chiefs in the second half. Right. And the total for me is going to be a little bit more of a wait and see. If I feel like I've got an angle to pull the trigger on it, I will, but nothing's set up quite yet.
Gotcha. Well, as we've talked to other years in the podcast, the biggest thing that people like to bet on, because it's a casual bettor, it's not even the size, it's not the total, it's these props, right? There's like a zillion of them. I don't know what the record is. First of all, I don't know if you read my article, but there's supposedly going to be 16 with a B $billion bet on this game this year.
Wow.
The most in history. And I think a lot of it could be this kind of stuff too, where you've got these random props. So there's different types of props we'll go through. There's game props, there's player props, there's, obviously rushing touchdown props. Then there's the random props we'll go over at the end. But how do you usually approach props?
Well, I mean, I know we've talked about it year over year, but I think a lot of casual bettors like to bet on overs and the yes props for, bet a little bit of money to win a lot. Like they're typically going to be shopping for like 8-1, 10-1, 20-1 props. Right. Maybe it'll go to overtime. Maybe there'll be a safety and overtime. But traditionally, those types of bets are they look fancy on paper, but it's not the way that you win money betting on props in the Super Bowl. You traditionally should be looking for the nose and the laying the big price to win a little, because those are the better value bet in the end.
Right. The unders. Yeah, exactly. Of course, I've violated all those principles for my bets, which we'll go over in a minute. Some of the ones that are silly that I've heard is obviously you can bet on that. We'll talk about the coin flip later, but the opening kickoff, touchback, yes is minus 159. That would be the opposite we're talking about. It's not the no, it's the yes, because it happens a lot. Yeah. And the MVP props, I mean, Mahomes is the favorite at plus 130 basically. And that was one of the things I was thinking about hedging. I didn't end up betting it. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And then there's some other silly game props that I pulled, and I actually bet on this one. Total players to complete a pass over 2.5. So
I like it.
the idea is they're going to run an end around and throw a ball and something. They got to complete the pass though. So plus two. I think
Well,
I'm getting like plus 215 on that one.
I mean, you have two coaches who have shown a propensity to run the gimmick plays, but on top of that, this year we have two quarterbacks that are not 100%. So
That's right.
any one hit could knock out Mahomes or Hurts for a play, and we could see a backup quarterback in there. So I like that bet a lot.
So I'm banking on. First team to score, just generally. So Philly's the favorite there, minus 113 versus Kansas City, minus 110. The last team to score, it's the opposite. Kansas City, as you mentioned, they're minus 108 to score the last team to score. Either team, I didn't bet this one, either team to miss an extra point. And I'm assuming this counts to 2.2 is a yes plus 308. That's a pretty good number. And then either team to successfully do a 2-pointer is plus 240, which I thought that was a pretty good prop because at some point, usually teams chase at some point to go for that.
Yeah, I think I like that bet this year too. Another one that I've heard, and I'm not sure if you have it further down, but over 1.5 fourth down conversions is another one that I've heard a lot about this week.
Yes.
Again, two coaches that have shown a propensity to go for it in a lot of situations on fourth down. So it's kind of very similar to that 2-point conversion idea.
It may, and apparently what I've heard anyway is that Sirianni, the coach of the Eagles, he's aggressive on that first drive. He may do it in the first drive, so you might cash in early. Some of the player props, the passing props, these may be a little stale action, so I pulled them a few days ago. But in general, Hurts' number for passing yards is around 240.5. Actually, there's a little more juice to the over on that number, so maybe that number's gone up a little bit. And his passing TD prop is 1.5, under being the favorite there, minus 115. And then I noted the passing and rushing yards is 293.5. And that's split action minus 112. You like any of those? Looks like you do.
I do, yeah. I bet Hurts under passing yards 238.5, I believe was the going rate today or yesterday whenever I put that in. I mean, we touched on it on the top. If you look at his last 3 games post injury, he has gone under this number by quite a bit in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
And I expect it's going to happen again this weekend.
I think he's only got maybe 265 yards in 2 games, last 2 games. He hasn't had a throw.
That's right.
But, Mahomes' numbers, it's 290.5 is the number I saw. Obviously he's facing the number 1 defense, but obviously it looks like action likes the over in this one. At minus 112, I saw that. So did you get the 290.5 or a lower number?
I have a little bit of 290.5, and then I think it might have been limited at the book that had that number, and I put in some more at 292.5.
There you go. His passing TD at 1.5 is heavily juiced to the over, minus 225 on that one. So, obviously this is kind of what we're actually talking about. The under is plus 175, but it's less likely to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I would only be looking to bet that over as well.
Now his passing and rushing yardage is 312.5, juiced a little bit to the under. I know a lot of people like his rushing prop, which is usually around 20, I guess in this case it'd be like 22 yards, 22.5 yards. So do you have any action on that?
On Mahomes rushing?
Yes.
That's one thing that I'm not going to touch this week. That ankle, although I'm sure is a lot healthier than he was in the AFC Championship, it's just a prop that I don't really feel like is worth getting involved in. There's so many other ways that I can make money on props this week. I'm not going to risk it with the uncertainty.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I skipped ahead of myself. So I guess the Mahomes prop's only 17.5 for the rush.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's gone up a little bit because that's over minus 114 on that one. Hurts' rushing prop is 49.5. The unders, it's just to the under. Again, remember his shoulder's still probably injured a little bit, so he's not going to maybe run a lot. But what do you think on that prop?
Oh, that's a good number. Certainly, they like to set up 7-8 design runs for him per game. Yes. And so to be honest, if I was going to be looking at a Hurts rushing prop, I would probably be looking at rushing attempts. Okay. Is my preference typically for Hurts. I don't know if I would go over 50 yards rushing. That's a lot for a quarterback.
It is. Now Sanders, there's a lot of buzz on Sanders. His number is 60.5 for rushing, juiced to the over minus 114. I've heard a lot of people say he's going to smash this one. because they've kind of been saving in the last two games using Gainwell more. You have no action on Sanders?
I didn't bet Sanders. I know that a lot of people have been, and to be honest with you, this is one that I think that I might be looking at going under at the last minute. I mean, you mentioned at the top you bet a lot of overs, and that's okay to do if it's early in the week.
Yeah.
The key is to wait. If you're looking at unders, wait for some of these really popular players like Sanders, AJ Brown, etc. Sunday right before kickoff. If you can go over the highest priced number in the market, you'll often be pretty good.
Nice. So I'm a big Gainwell guy. Full disclosure, if you read the article, I'm on like 4 of his props. So Gainwell's
Nice.
number is 19.5 over on rushing or total rushing. And then his combined yardage, his base combined yardage is 33.5. I don't really like the rushing one for him, but I do like his combined yardage. I ended up doing an alt combined yardage. I know this is stupid. Actually, would have told me not to do it, but I did 49.5 total over, and that was like plus money. It was like plus 230 or something like that. So yeah, almost plus 320. So a pretty high number there. I've heard a lot. I mean, look, I've watched the last two games. It's hard because they've been dominating and they put him in.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I do like the way he's running the ball and catching the ball. He's always involved. We'll talk about his receiving prop in a minute, but I do like Gainwell quite a bit, especially if the game script flips on me and it's Kansas City winning. They're gonna need him on the field because Sanders basically doesn't catch the ball. He just runs.
That's a really good point. I mean, you touched on it. His usage was up due to the blowouts in the first two playoff games. But if they get into that negative game script where they're going to be passing the ball, I think that you really are onto something here. And even without that, I think we're going to see some Gainwell rushes and receiving yards. So I like the price that you got there, plus 230.
Right. So Pacheco, obviously I was bigger on this before the, Clyde Edwards-Helaire news, but his prop is 47.5, and the under is juiced minus 114. I do like the over here. I think he's going to run the ball more, but maybe more of his combined yards. His combines are 65.5. Juiced to the over in that one, minus 113. I'll tell you about that in the receiving side. I didn't end up getting on the rushing because of Edwards-Helaire. I backed off. But any thoughts on Pacheco?
Well, I mean, he's certainly been the lead back, but I think you mentioned it. The uncertainty of having CEH back in the lineup gives me some pause too. And I think you're right. If I was looking at Pacheco, it would be more in the receiving department than the just rushing yards.
Right. So now receiving props, the big dogs, AJ Brown, he's at 71.5. His receptions at 5.5. So it's interesting with this one. He's juiced the over in yards minus 113, but the reception under minus 141. So I guess he's the deep threat. They take some shots, and he hasn't been getting like a ton of receptions, even though he had a great year this year. Plus, he hasn't scored a touchdown since like week 17, by the way. What do you think about AJ Brown?
I think that the Chiefs are going to focus on him, like rightly so. And this is one player that I've targeted to look at going under right before kickoff because I think that his number, along with Miles Sanders, is going to be artificially inflated by the public.
Yeah, agreed. So here's my guy Gainwell again. I skipped Goddard. We'll get to him in a minute. Gainwell, his receiving total is only 11.5. I don't know what the deal is, and it's juiced heavily to the under. I ended up taking an alt on this one too and do 19.5 at plus 235. His receptions are at 1.5, and I've heard a lot of people, including the great Paul Charchian, who's like a Hall of Fame fantasy guy, they've had this at 1.5 for the last 3 games, and he's smashed it. So I took that. I actually did an alt on him at 2.5. So that means I need 3 receptions to do, and that's plus 215 for that. So like I said, I'm all over Gainwell this week.
I like it. And I mean, you mentioned it too. Miles Sanders just doesn't catch passes. So if any of these backs are going to get him, it will be Gainwell.
Right. Now, Goddard's numbers, I guess I should have done Smith first, but Smith's numbers were 60.5, totaling, his juice to the over actually on that one, just like AJ Brown. His receptions at 1.5 also heavily juiced to the under. So it seems like what the books are thinking is that they're going to force the ball to the tight ends and the running backs, right?
Yeah, on both sides of both teams for sure.
Yeah, and Goddard's is 49.5, and he's minus 112 both ways on that one, 4.5. receptions, his is marked to the over -141. So it looks like you like that, and I know a lot of people are on that prop.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just following the masses there. Goddard over 4.5 seems like a very popular pick, and it's one that I bet as well.
But you stayed away from the yardage, just the receptions.
Yep. Yep. Just bet the receptions. I don't remember the juice I got on that one. I thought it was better than 141, though, to be honest. I think it was like in the 120s range.
Might have got it
Still.
early in the week before everybody was talking about it.
Yeah. 129. I got 4.5. Goddard over.
It's good. All right, so now on the other side of the ball, we know Kelsey's the guy. His yardage is 80.5. Receptions are 7.5. It's still juiced to the under on the 80.5, thinking that they'll try to take him away. But it's also juiced to the under at 7.5. But it's like one of these things where they were saying this week, Jacksonville said they were going to stop Kelsey, and he had 14 receptions for 120 yards. So, I mean, I don't know. When I look at the defense, that's the Eagles' defense, it's really set up for outside receivers or deep receivers, not necessarily the middle of the field.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Kelsey is in for another huge game. I bet this receptions prop over as well with some nice plus money and not quite plus 110, but I do have over 7.5, 108, I think at FanDuel. And I've actually seen some 6.5s that are still in the market too with heavy juice. I mean, you have to pay like 170, 180 to go over 6.5.
Interesting. Now with Juju back, his yardage is down 38.5, -112 both ways. Receptions just 3.5. Juice to the over, and then MVS is 36.5. Juice to the under, and then receptions 2.5, juice to the over. So it's kind of interesting. Like to me, when I look at those receivers, I know that MVS actually going into the year, I didn't think he was that great. I think he's had a really good year with Mahomes. He obviously played very well last week. I would think that he'd continue that trajectory, and Juju, more possession guy. But so, I mean, who's Bradbury going to guard? That's my question. Bradbury's a great corner, Slay's on the outside. So I don't know. Like MVS is more of a threat than Juju to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I just don't really know how to separate any of these Chiefs wide receivers. So
Yeah.
I haven't really touched any of these props, but I think you're right. It's just, I mean, Mahomes traditionally is going to go to the open wide receiver. And so if Bradbury or Slay is locking down their guy, then he's just going to find the person who's open. And that could be any number of these receivers.
Right. Now, the AFC Championship game, everybody was talking to McKinnon. 20.5 over on the yards and 2.5 over on the receptions, and he didn't do jack.
Yeah,
So,
right.
and I didn't get on that, thankfully. Pacheco's at 14.5, juice to the over -117, and 1.5 receptions, juice to the over -180. So my bet here is I went to an all total again, 19.5 over plus 138 for Pacheco. I think he's going to get the ball more.
I like it. And that's strictly receiving yards?
Receiving
for
yards
Pacheco?
only, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't end up doing the combined yards, which I mentioned earlier, but I just stuck with I guess I got 114 in the end. It definitely, it's moving my way or moving, against me. But I mean, like people have the same thought I have on this one.
Yeah. I have an interesting Pacheco prop that I'm on. It was Sean Corner, I think, Action Network has Pacheco to catch a pass before Miles Sanders, -130.
In the
So it's
game.
just a timing thing in the game. And I mean, you mentioned earlier, I think Sanders' projection for catches is like 0.7, less than 1, and Pacheco is almost near the 2 range. So like the odds there, -130.
And Sanders barely catches the ball, so it makes sense.
Yep.
Nice work. So how about the TD props? There's a variety of ways to bet the TD props. You can bet the anytime TD, you can bet the first TD, which is big money, and then you can bet the last TD. I usually don't go for first TD. Maybe I'll throw a little pizza money on there. When I say pizza, like a slice of pizza money, as you say. But I am on Kelsey, who's the favorite on this one. He's -120 on the anytime, and I do like that prop. I think Kelsey will catch a touchdown. He's +700 on the first TD. So I just did check the box. Let's get Kelsey a touchdown and, see if I can get some money back.
I like it. Yeah, I haven't bet any of these TD props, but I'm surely going to be putting in 1 or 2 before game time just for fun.
Yeah, Pacheco is +148 anytime, +950 for the first one. MVS. Mahomes, which means he's got to run it in, is plus 425 on the anytime, plus 2200 on the first TD. Our guy, did I not put Hurts? Yeah, Hurts is minus one. I guess he's a little bit better than Kelsey. And he is minus 118 for the anytime, and then plus 600 for the first. I like Gainwell in this one for the anytime plus 310.
Nice.
He's first plus 117 or 1700. So I'm not going on the first one. That could be anything. That could be a fumble or something like that. So I stayed away from that, but I did get in on the Gainwell anytime.
Yeah, all in on Gainwell this week. I like it.
Dude. I'm all in. All in. How about this one? I've heard this talked about a lot. It's the jersey number of the TD score over or under 11.5, the number of the score. And then it's minus 112 each way. This is interesting because they like split the baby, because I think, what's his name? Isn't AJ Brown's 11, I think?
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
he's
you're
number
right.
11. So he's kind of the last number and then everybody else. I know you haven't thought about this, but it's just an interesting prop.
Yeah, I would have to put some serious work into like all of the players and their numbers, and you could try to crunch their anytime touchdown odds. Oh, this is the first TD scorer though, right?
Yeah, it's the first, my bad. First
Yeah,
TV score, yes.
yeah. So I mean, I think Kelsey probably has got to
Yeah,
give you a tick mark on the high side, and then I think Hertz is even under 11.5 as well, right?
yeah, he is. Yeah, so there's some interesting. I mean, Mahomes is plus, but he's 15. So, it's interesting how to look at that. And then I also looked at the sack numbers. So this is something that's interesting in these Super Bowls. It depends on how they call it. Are they going to let the guys play and never call holding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's like a clean pocket. The total sacks for both teams 5.5 in the game, and it's juiced heavily to the under minus 137 versus plus 110 for the over. And we've seen this in some of these Super Bowls where it's like there's barely any sack because they're just letting it go.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I mean, there's something to that heavy juice to under 5.5, I would bet.
Yeah, now KC's 2.5 for the sacks is under minus 130. Philly is over minus 125 at the 2.5. So, there's some definite things there. The individual guys, Clark and Jones for KC, they're, half a sack basically. If they get a sack, it pays out. Heavy to the under on Clark and pretty close, minus 112 split on Jones. Fletcher Cox is saying half a sack. He's minus 360. But I did bet Hassan Reddick minus 167 at the half a sack. He's heavily juiced over. I think he's going to get a sack.
Yeah, yeah, I like that one too. Another one that I heard is the matchup between Philly and Kansas City.
Okay.
As you may imagine, Philly is a pretty heavy favorite in that market to have more sacks in the game. But I touched on at the top, Hertz has taken a lot more sacks this season than Mahomes has because
Yes.
Mahomes likes to get rid of the football and he's got the arm strength to get it past the line of scrimmage. So I think that there's a little bit of value there if you look at Kansas City as a plus 120 dog in that market.
Okay, and that's a two outcome situation, so there's no
Yep.
indexing, which is great. Here's the one that I did. So, Rivers, my only out, as you know, they're giving away a free $25 bet. I could have split it up, but I decided to screw it all in. I went all in Hassan Reddick,
All right.
MVP. And guess
Oh,
what? It pays
nice.
plus 3,000. So that $25 bet, 750, buddy. So you see Hassan Reddick hoisting up that MVP, you'll be, I'll get you a couple drinks in Vegas, buddy.
Hey, I mean, I don't hate the bet, especially with the way that the defensive line has been getting the headlines this season for the Eagles. That among anything else is just narrative based because it's like, I think 80% from the media and then 20% fan vote, right? So, I mean, combine that with the fact that Hurts is banged up and he may have a pedestrian game for the most part. I think that there's a little bit of value looking defensively on the Eagles. I like it.
Yeah, theoretically, if the Eagles win, the defense is going to win it for them. Theoretically, I mean, Hurts could have a good game, but it's hard to. It's like last year, they ended up. I thought probably should have been Aaron Donald, but they gave it to Cooper Kupp and all. But it came down to like the last couple minutes, and unfortunately, they do put it in a little bit before the last drive of the game. But
Yeah. I thought you were going to go all in on the coin toss.
Oh, 25 big ones. Yeah. Exactly. So let's go. So these specialty props. Now, granted, some of these are not available at your regular books. You may have to go offshore for these things. The coin toss, I believe, is, well, I don't think it's actually at Rivers, to be honest with you. It's all game related, but so right now you've got the coin toss, meaning heads or tails is minus 103 each side. We've talked about this many times. And then who wins the coin toss? Minus 106 either side.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting that it's different odds. What do you think about that?
Well, public service announcement, for the first time ever that I can remember, DraftKings is offering the coin toss at plus 100 on each side. So
What?
if you wish to bet the coin toss, do not bet it anywhere else besides DraftKings, because that is actually true odds in this market.
There's
I've
got to be
also
a
heard,
limit on that, right? So 50
oh, good
bucks or
point.
something?
I'm not sure. That's a good point, because I mean, if you're looking to clear some points so you can get some sort of kickback, or I don't even know what sort of rewards program they have, but I mean, you could presumably bet as much as you want on both sides and come out even and just garner a ton of points. So
Yeah, what the hell? Okay. But there are, I didn't put this on there. There's a lot of, I do believe, maybe Rivers does have the coin toss, because there's specialties where it's like win the coin toss and win the game,
yeah.
right? And that's obviously big plus money, but that's, I don't know. It's a lot of exotic ways to bet this stupid thing.
Yeah. Another thing regarding the coin toss is that both of these coaches are 100% going to defer. So if you are watching the game early and you don't have 4 beers deep, if you see exactly who wins that coin toss, if you immediately go in and live bet the other team to score first, you're going to be looking pretty good.
Okay, good tip. Of course, I skipped this part, the national anthem, which actually comes before the coin toss. I've got it, so it's 119 and a half seconds. I think it might be a little more than that. Oh no, okay. So FanDuel. I saw it on FanDuel. I don't have FanDuel account, but they had it really low at 119 and a half seconds.
Wow.
Over minus 210, which was like, okay. But the normal one I think is 124 and a half. That seems to be the even money for the national anthem. As you know, Chris Stapleton is singing, country guy. He's going to be crooning it out. You got to like the over, right?
With the guitar too, I've heard. So presumably going to be a little bit slower there. It looks like you could shop around and try to hit a middle on the national anthem. That'd be pretty cool, huh?
There you go, hit the middle. And then the number of halftime songs, I've seen 9.5 out there at minus 115.
Wow.
And then also, of course, the first song is heavily bet. Any ideas on the first song by Rihanna in the halftime show?
I heard on a podcast yesterday, the Dream Preview, that there's some news out there that the first song is actually going to be a tape recording of Rihanna. I don't remember the song, but it's going to be like 10 or 15 seconds of a tape recorded. And then they're going to cut that off and she's actually going to go into the live song. So how the books are going to grade that when it actually plays out that way is going to be a difficult question to answer. And for that reason, I would probably stay away from betting this altogether. But I don't remember the name of either song, to be honest.
Gotcha. Before I get to the Gatorade dump, there's all these commercial props, as you know. Doritos is the heavy favorite for the first brand to be shown, by the way. But there's a lot of ones that you can do 2 different brands against each other, which is before the other one, from what I can see.
Commercial
and then I know
matchups.
What's that?
Commercial matchups.
Yeah, I like it. And then this is one of your favorites. I don't know if you're doing it, is cross sport props. You've got, I heard one today that this was right up your alley action. It was number of field goals made versus number of goals in a given game in like the Premier League or something. And the guy really liked the Premier League side.
Oh, interesting. Was that Charchian? Or
it wasn't Charchian. It was another guy. I can't remember, dude. I listened to a lot of people today. But I will tell you that apparently the Eagles just don't kick a lot of field goals.
Yes.
And Butker's, he hasn't been great this year. So definitely under the field goal total this year. But I mean, these cross sport props, it could be, points. And I mean, you've done these before, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'll admit I haven't dove into the cross sport props yet, but it's certainly on my agenda between now and Sunday. Maybe need to listen to some of the VSiN shows and pick some up. But you mentioned the kicker. I do have a prop on Jake Elliott to go under 7.5 kicking points at minus 120. So Philadelphia not planning, or at least the market's telling us that they're not going to be kicking a lot of field goals. They're likely to go for it in most cases. So bet him under.
That's right. Go for it. Just you kick the regular extra point, and that's a lot of touchdowns to do that. And then the last one is the Gatorade color. I know you're big on this. Now these numbers differ vastly. I've seen them in different places, so I'm quoting wherever I pulled all this stuff. The orange was the favorite, but everybody's saying the yellow green. I mean, so orange is plus 350, but the yellow green plus 400. I heard that's the one. I saw blue at plus 400. I saw it somewhere else at plus 900. And then obviously red or pink, for the Chiefs, maybe, for the Chiefs plus 450, the color of their jersey, they're white. I don't know. What are you thinking on this one?
I heard on a podcast, don't recall which, that the Gatorade folks have come out and said that it's completely random. They have an algorithm that randomizes the color of the Gatorade. So there's no correlation to the team, green, red, orange, whatever. But I also heard that in several of the last Super Bowls, there has been no Gatorade. And I think that just looking at the odds board here, 10-1 on no Gatorade would be my pick if I were forced to bet this. The Chiefs could win, and Andy Reid could have a platter of cheeseburgers, for all I know.
So, but just to clarify, so that means there's no Gatorade dump.
Correct.
Or you mean that there's nothing, versus if they dump water, it would be clear. That's on the board. Versus no dump at all. It's like confetti or something.
Yeah. I think you probably have to read your book's description of how they're going to grade this, but I would think it would be no dump, period. Yeah.
I gotcha. I should have done this. Yeah, I should have cleared this with. I don't want to do it though. It'd be too many people at the bar. But I've done this before at Super Bowl parties where you kind of have like a prop board against. You have just two people against each other,
nice.
And it's like whatever. And then you handle the money and sell it out, and you get people going. But I could have done that for this on its own. It'd be great. Okay, so you're watching at home. You're making dips. I'm sure you're gonna make a nice pork shoulder or something. You're a very good cook.
Ooh, I like that.
You're going to be chilling. You're early on the Chiefs, but you're going to go in game. You've got some props going. What's your biggest excitement in this game coming in for this game? What do you want to see?
Wow, that's a really loaded question. I think the gameplay itself. I mean, I'm not disinterested, but not very interested in the commercials anymore. Yeah. So I'm really interested to see how the two quarterbacks play, whether Mahomes looks 100% healthy and how Jalen Hurts looks as well. So I'm super pumped. I think this is going to be a pretty high scoring game, evidenced by my over bet. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see a show like we saw between the Eagles and the Patriots years ago.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
How about you?
Well, for me, I want to see, I'm not saying I don't care who wins. Of course, I want to win more money with the Eagles, but I just want to see Hurts because he's, like I said, he's kind of getting shat on a little bit with the awards, and people are beating him up on Twitter. I want to see him play a really good game, even if they lose, right? Against, Mahomes is going to play well. Mahomes is going to do his thing. But Mahomes, I question his cast if they're as good as, past years. So you got this Chiefs known commodity with the offense. You don't know what Hurts is going to do in this situation. We did see him in the national championship, get pulled for two, blah, 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 blah. So I kind of just want to see him step up, play a great game, even if they lose. And then, just see a really good game in the fourth quarter. That's what I always want to see, of course.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I definitely don't want the Broncos-Panthers Super Bowl replayed where it was like a brutal defensive struggle and just sad in the end. It was not a pretty game.
Yeah, or Patriots-Rams.
10-3, was that the final one?
I think so. Yeah, maybe we'll get our first overtime with the new rules. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I know you really want that. So, okay, well, let's go on to college basketball shortly here. We didn't really grade our picks from last week, which was a mistake. My bad. Action. I wasn't on my game, but I will next week.
I think we did pretty good.
I think we did.
Thinking back, North Carolina got clipped in the last minute because they couldn't make an open shot. But outside of that, I think we won all the games that we tipped last week.
Yeah, Indiana was good, and San Diego State, and all that stuff. So good job. Mm-hmm. So we don't have any Friday night action. I didn't get on the Xavier or whoever the hell they're playing. There's nobody. You got to get better games on Friday night action. Come on.
I know. It's been a bad scheduling year for Friday nights, no doubt.
Unless you want to bet on the Ivy League. I think they play Friday nights. No? Yeah. You don't want Little pen, little quakes, little quakes.
I'm good.
So Saturday you've got four good games, and they kind of skip Sunday. Saturday has the four good games. You've got Alabama and Auburn. This is not a football game. 2 o'clock Eastern. You know, Alabama's been playing really good. I did get to see those guys play this week. Now I know why they're good. They've got a bunch of tall dudes, and they really play ball. Auburn has kind of sputtered a little bit down the stretch here the last couple of games, even though they kept it close. That Tennessee Auburn game was brutal, by the way, on Saturday. So any lean in this game?
It looks like Ken Palm has Alabama by 3. So I would probably lean to the home side here. I think that has been my mantra so far this college basketball season, and it's been working well for me. You have a team in Auburn that's 27th ranked in Ken Palm, so decent in their own right, and getting some points at home I think would be a strong look.
It's probably a good idea. They are 2-1 against the spread, even though they've lost a couple of games here. I want to see that game. Should be fun. The second game I have here is UConn at Creighton. This is a 2 o'clock start as well. All these games at 2. UConn they sputtered, but they played really well this week to get a big win against, I think it was Xavier. No, they played Marquette.
Yeah.
They beat them soundly. Creighton was kind of on the rise, but then they got beat as well. It's tough. Creighton obviously at home in this one. They're 1-2 their last 3 against the spread. Do you like UConn to continue it, or do you think they're going to falter on the road?
No, I like Creighton here. Looks like Ken Palm has Creighton -1.
Okay.
And so I think that's a really short spread, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets lined at 2.5 or 3. Might be out already, but Nemhard, and ever since they got Ryan Kalkbrenner back, the big center in the middle of this Creighton team has been different than they were when they went on that 4 or 5 game slide early in the season. And despite Connecticut's good win the other night against Marquette, that was at home. Now they have to go on the road to Nebraska, where they have not fared well over years past. So give me the home team.
All right, another home. He's a homer. He's a homer, everybody. How about this one? Rutgers at Illinois, again, 2 o'clock Eastern. Rutgers in the rack, this team you have to bet on. They're a bet on team in the rack. Outside of the rack, they're not going to do as well, right? Is that the simple handicap?
Yeah, I think so. Ken Palm has Illinois -2. So again, short spread, home team. Rutgers is ranked this year, or this week rather, until they went on the road and lost at Indiana earlier in the week. So I would expect that you're going to get an Illinois team who's unranked here, favored by a bucket or 2. And that has been a very profitable angle, historically speaking, because the public sees that little number next to the road team and they're like, oh, give me the Rutgers team here. So I think the play is Illinois.
Do you have any credence that this week Minnesota and Illinois had a postponed game, so they actually haven't played all week? Do you think that's a good thing for Illinois?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they haven't been playing very well recently, so you got to figure that Underwood had them working a little extra hard this week, knowing they have a big game with Rutgers coming in.
Last game on Saturday at 4 o'clock Eastern that I have highlighted is Baylor at TCU. You know, this Big 12 schedule is, a gauntlet for everybody. TCU, pretty good ball club this year, but Baylor is finally starting to get healthy. Do you see an upset here, or you think you're just sticking with the home team again?
Well, this one's tough because Mike Miles, the point guard for TCU, had I think rolled his ankle a week and a half ago, and he's been out the last 3 games, and he's been sorely missed by the TCU team. So I probably will not be betting this game until I get some clarity on Mike Miles' status. Without him, it's hard to bet on TCU, but if he happens to be back in the lineup tomorrow, I would like them a lot at home.
Yeah, it looks like it's interesting. So at least like Baylor pushed against Oklahoma this week, but I think they're getting better. They've got an interesting team, but they're definitely got the guards, and I like them to on the road. Okay, so the only other game I highlighted was another Big East one, was Creighton at Providence. I'm not sure I was grasping at straws here. This is on Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern. Creighton going on the road this time against Providence. Providence has traditionally been pretty good. They're not as good as they've been in years past, but they're rising up in Ken Palm. Any thoughts on Providence?
I mean, they've been good again this season. Remember last year they had that surprise team who just seemingly won like every close game that they played in. but
Yes.
they're doing it again this year, backing it up. And Ken Palm has Providence -1 in this game.
Mhm.
Again, it's a theme here today, but I would definitely look at the home side here.
This guy's Johnny Home Team over here. Okay, great. Well, that wraps up college basketball. Next week it'll be pretty much all college basketball after the Super Bowl recap, and then we'll mix in some other stuff. You did want to mix in a little, Waste Management Open in Phoenix. What a time to be in Phoenix, right? What a time to be alive.
Yeah, I mean, I got it on here at the TV in my office, and it looks beautiful in Scottsdale today. Wish I
Oh
was
yeah.
there. But it's obviously started yesterday now, recording here on Friday. So some of these odds are no longer available. But John Rahm was the shortest odds on the board. A stacked field this week, I should add, because this year the PGA decided that they were going to elevate 15 or 20 additional events. And this particular tournament has a $20 million prize purse in total. And so, like, I think it's 25 out of the top 27 golfers in the world are all here this week. So it kind of has like a major feel. And John Rahm was tied for first here going into the mid-second round. And I would expect that he's going to continue to play well, as he is a Arizona State grad playing at his nearly home course.
Yeah, and you've been to this. We were talking about it before the pod in 2017, we think, and people are just pounding beers, getting hammered. It's a rowdy crowd. The golfers get fired up. It's not like the Quiet Masters or
Yeah.
some other U.S. Open. People are going crazy on this one.
Yeah, definitely a far different environment than most golf tournaments. It's a good time, and I would love to get back there someday and sit in the stadium seating at the 16th hole.
Yeah, someday we'll be wealthy enough to go to both events. We'll
There you
go
go.
Western, the Waste Management Open, and we'll go to the Super Bowl in the same weekend, and we'll be ballers. So exciting stuff. Well, action, it's only what? I guess I should have counted this before I said this. It's only 5 weeks, I think. 5 weeks from now, we will be in lovely Las Vegas, and it looks like one of my buddies might also be there now as well. So we've
Nice.
got our group of four. Maybe we'll meet up with some other people, check out those opening games, March Madness. We're there the 15th in the evening. We're leaving Saturday night. Others are staying through Monday. Check out the first and second rounds of the NCAA tournament. I haven't, I've just started watching college basketball. It's going to be wide open. It's going to be a bloodbath in those first couple rounds.
Yeah, it could be underdogs better delight going into that first round of the tournament.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm excited. So we'll definitely get more buzz as we get closer. I've got my deadline for work on Thursday, and then I can focus on my life again after that. And then obviously football season's over. So it's kind of like it feels like spring's coming, even though it's not really getting to come yet, according to the groundhog. You got a little sun outside. I mean, it feels like spring, and we've got the March trip. I'm getting pumped up, dude.
Yeah, I haven't read the Farmer's Almanac, but my body tells me that spring is coming a little bit early this year. I think these warmer temps are going to stick around.
I hope so. I hope so. All right, Action. We'll enjoy the big game. Enjoy the Waste Management Open. Hopefully, win some money on that too. And we'll check in next week. Follow us at Side Action Pod on Twitter and Side Action Podcast on Instagram. Follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and on Instagram.
And follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
All right. Enjoy the big game, everybody.